The Crypt interviews in association with Mayo Leisure Point Castle Bar.
You're listening to The Crypt, and joining me on the show this week is Harrison Smith, who is the writer and director of the new horror movie Death House, which stars a pure feast of horror icons including Kane Hodder, Tony Todd, Bill Moseley, Dee Wallace and Michael Berryman, to name but a few. So you're very welcome to the show, Harrison.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I'm really glad for the exposure on Death House.
Well, firstly, Harrison, Death House is a movie that was originally wrote by Leatherface himself, Gunnar Hansen, and it's been floating around for a while. So can you talk about how you came to be involved in the project?
Sure, absolutely. The project was brought to me by Rick Finkelstein and Stephen Chase of Entertainment Factory. And they knew Gunnar, and they were working with Gunnar when you said, as correctly you said, that the project had been floating around for some time. And Rick was absolutely dedicated to getting this movie made, and he formed a good friendship with Gunnar, and it was his promise to Gunnar to get this done. And I have to say, Rick is a man of his word, Rita. He really is. Mm-hmm. I mean, it meant everything to him. He relocated his entire company to Los Angeles to get this done for Gunnar. Oh, so wow. They had the project going. It went through a rewrite by Gunnar. Gunnar himself was not happy with his own rewrite. And then they gave it to someone else, I believe. And I don't know who. I wouldn't name him anyway. But I know Gunnar was less than pleased even with that rewrite. And I think a number of the horror stars were also less than pleased with that rewrite. So it kind of went back to square one. And Mike Eisenstadt, who represented Dee Wallace and also Gunnar, said, Dee has worked with this filmmaker, Harrison Smith, on a Death House. On a Zombie Killers, and they're having a screening tonight. Why don't you come out to, I believe it was at USC in Los Angeles. And so why don't you come out and meet him? So they came out, they brought me the project. Rick admittedly said he wasn't excited about changing horses in midstream. They did have other people attach this to rewrite and direct. But Rick met me, we hit it off. And within, I'd say about a month and a half, they had a new revise. And it knocked everybody on their ass, I guess, is what it was. And Gunnar was really pleased with it. He and I had constant phone calls back and forth. And I had no idea that Gunnar was ill. He never let on. Gosh. And imagine carrying that with you. I know. And sitting there the whole time talking about, and now in hindsight, of course, you understand. You're like, oh, yeah, now I see why he was like so insistent on getting this film made, because he knew he wasn't going to live long enough to see it happen. Oh, it's so sad. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And as we all know, that's one of the worst you can get. And it moved quickly and unfortunately very painfully through him. And it's just terrible, Yeah. And, he did talk to Rick in his last days, and he said, the script has my blessing, get it made. And the hard part about this, Rita, is when you're in this entertainment industry stuff is, people don't see certain things in proper context. And I was very concerned about that, when Gunnar died, we go out and go, yes, but Death House was his last movie, looking like vultures, kind of picking on the carcass. And Gunnar already, that's how prescient he was. Gunnar already knew that would happen. And he said, listen, you go out and promote this movie on my gravesite if you have to. That's what he said.
Well, it was his dream. So he's getting his dream, isn't he? So
yes. And we did it. We did it, and we did right by him. We'll get into that. I'm sure you probably have questions in a bit about the quality of the film, who's in it, and most of all, the type of film that is. You've seen the trailer, so we'll get to that to the next question. But that's how the project came to me. And I was very honored. I mean, Rick and Steve have been wonderful people. And one of the few people that I've met in the industry that they just do what they say they're going to do. And that's the best currency you can use in Hollywood is action, not words.
Exactly. And then how different is the storyline from what Gunnar originally had wrote?
Sure. The original story that Gunnar wrote was, it was a group of like 10, I think it was like 10 psych students in a university. Their professor wants to teach them about fear. And basically they go to this old abandoned asylum where they descend into like the bowels of the abandoned asylum to find out it's not so abandoned, and then hilarity ensues. So for me, when I talked to Gunnar about it, I said to him, I get what you're doing here, but this has kind of been done before. We've seen this, and it kind of lends itself to, the 10 Little Indians formula of, and then there was one,
Yeah.
And what I don't want, like when this was pitched to me, the media has called this the Expendables of horror. Mm-hmm. And while that does work to an extent to help market this thing, it also makes a very negative connotation of two things. One, it sounds like a gimmick movie. That's one. Like, it's going to be a Scooby-Doo episode of, oh, look, there's Sid Haig. Oh, look, there's Tony Todd. And then the other thing that it does is that it makes it sound like that they're all going to be their old characters. Like, it'll be Candyman versus Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
That's not what we're doing. And I made it very clear from the beginning, I have no interest in making a movie like that, because in my opinion, that's not a movie. That's a gimmick. It's a product. Love it or hate it, Freddy versus Jason, it doesn't work. And the reason why is those two worlds don't belong together. They don't belong. And it's just, it's like Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein or something like that. There's no need for it.
When I first read about Death House, that's the way it was kind of portrayed in the media, was that it was going to be like all these characters. You'd have Freddy, you'd have Jason, as you said, Candyman, and this is, I think, what people were expecting. So it's good that this is going to be an original story, an original idea, and something new, because
we've got enough remake, reboot, and regurgitation. We've got enough of that. And quite frankly, Rita, those kind of mashups are gimmicks. There's nothing to them. They're like, worldwide wrestling for, monsters. And it doesn't work. And quite frankly, I think it's stupid. That's my opinion. I think that's what I said just this past weekend at Days of the Dead. Horror fans really need to stop expecting stupid stuff and step up their game a little bit. They need to stand up and expect better from their entertainment. Don't always be expecting the same dumb thing, or just accept a remake. When I opened the panel on Saturday, I said to them, who's going to be at these tables in 30 years? I mean, really, what? Zombie number 6 from The Walking Dead?
Yeah.
What legends will be sitting at the tables? And most of all, with constant remakes, you never get vested into the characters, because it doesn't matter. They're only going to reboot it. And how many reboots are we doing on Spider-Man already? Why do we need this? And so for me, I think horror fans really need to step up their game. I think they need to expect better and stop going online and trashing something that's different, because all they do is they go on, a lot of them, oh, this isn't going to be like, Friday the 13th. No, that's because that was that. Why do you want to keep this? Horror is more than just a franchise, there's so much more to the genre. There's so much history, and we packed this movie with so much history, and most of all, people that are very iconic people in this pop culture world that, quite frankly, no one else has ever put them all together like this. And I don't think in their lifetime anyone's going to do it again.
Then what is the storyline now that you've come up with, and what is the concept of the Five Evos?
Okay, so Gunnar made it clear when he wanted the Five Evos. He had 4 evils in his story, and they were all men. I added a 5th. I made a woman as one of the evils to fill out the 5 points on the pentagram. And so Gunnar's story, as I told you, was that about the asylum. Mm-hmm. I sat down for a rewrite, and I'm like, okay, we gotta change this up a little bit, but we only have a limited budget, so we have to be very smart about that. And I was sitting in a bar doing some work on the treatment when it was around Super Bowl time over here, and the preview for Jurassic World came on. And that's when it hit me. I was like, there it is. Instead of an asylum, why don't we make it a prison, an experimental medical prison, where it's like the Area 51 of confinement.
Yeah.
And what'll happen is 2 federal agents are going to go through this place, and the ride breaks down, just like in Jurassic Park, and the monsters get out.
I love it.
That's my concept. So it's instead of the Expendables of horror, it's Jurassic Park without the dinosaurs. That's what it is. In addition to that, the Five Evos fit in because they're at the bottom of this prison. They're in the 9th level, okay? And the 9th level is like Dante's 9 circles of hell. And they're at the bottom. They're the worst of the worst. And the only way out, unfortunately, because the entire prison is following Kane Hodder to the bottom of the prison. These two agents were stuck in the middle in an elevator. So they can't go up. The only way out is down and basically to throw themselves on the mercy of the Five Evos.
Will this be the most badass we have seen Kane yet?
Well, I don't know. I think so. When you see what he does to R.A. Mihailoff, that might be pretty badass. So I think so because his character is named Sieg, and he's not just a badass, like, walking through and ripping crap up, but he's extremely intelligent. And he has this really cool kind of underlying relationship with Courtney Palm in the film as well, too. And I'll tell you what, Bill Moseley said when he was watching Kane's performance in L.A., he goes, "This is Kane's movie." That's what he said.
But
yeah, I think he's pretty, and that's what people are describing him in the trailer as, is badass.
And like everybody knows Kane obviously is Jason and Victor Crowley and that, but like he's known as the man behind the mask, but he is such a good actor.
Oh, he's a damn good actor.
Yeah.
And that's what he gets to do in this. He doesn't wear a mask in this. He gets to act. And he gets to show off his chops. And that's what he wanted. He didn't want makeup on. And here's another thing about your question with the Five Evils. All of them made it a point, and that's why they said they took the part of one of the Five Evils, is they don't wear makeup.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. Because you're not getting this Cenobite kind of look at the end of the film. I'm not ripping off Clive Barker, okay? So, because true evil, like in the Holocaust, movies have made it out that, the worst Nazis were these big hulking brutes. No, they were little men with spectacles and things like that process units, which were really human beings. And in this case, the banality of evil is extremely important, which is why I love when they meet one of the leader of the Five Evils, which is played by Bill Moseley. When Courtney and Cody meet him at the end, his first line is, "I am God, the great and terrible," which is a reference, obviously, right to the Wizard of Oz. And you'll understand why that works so well. And we've actually elevated the genre up. We just didn't shoot for the stupid. We aimed for something higher concept in this movie.
Well, as you said there's a lot of history in the movie. It's full of Easter eggs. So do you think will people pick up on them straight away, or will it take maybe a second or third viewing to spot them all?
We want multiple viewings. Yes, we buried some of them that you have to listen a little better. You have to look a little harder. Some of them are quite obvious, especially after the movie is over and you sit through the credits. There is a mid-credit sequence that probably has the best Easter egg in the whole movie. And I was thrilled. That was a bonus. Like when we got a chance to do that, I was like, oh, this is freaking great. So, and that's what I also think, Rita, is that the movie is a lot of fun with these Easter eggs without being stupid, satirical, or campy. Yeah. We are giving a straight up horror film that has great action, an excellent science fiction element, and also a historical element as well. So even though we're limited by a lower budget, we're not limited in imagination or the ability. Low budget, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say. It doesn't have to mean it has to suck. Yeah,
exactly. And then I know you use mostly practical special effects during the movie too, which is awesome.
Correct. All of our major gags are practical. And I've said it in previous interviews, and I said it at the panel this weekend. We have a practical effect that, in my opinion, is right up on the level and rivals the chest burster scene in the original Alien.
Oh, wow. Excellent. And did you use much CGI at all during the movie?
Yeah, we use CGI. Most of it was done to clean up things, clean out some imperfections, or also alter some landscapes because the death house needs to be isolated. Mm-hmm. It's like out like Area 51. It's like out in the middle of the friggin' desert hills, So, but of course, the prison where we shot was smack dab in the middle of Philadelphia. So there were some skyscrapers and buildings and neighborhoods to erase, stuff like that.
Yeah.
However, None of the monsters or the creatures or the blood effects, none of them are CGI, all practical. It's funny how somebody will look at like an old James Bond movie, and when they're driving in front of the rear projection scene, like they're driving and you can tell they're clearly not on the road, and people love that and they accepted that. But now, like, people think, look, you can tell when somebody's in front of a CGI screen. And, people just go, oh, well, that's better than the old James Bond stuff. No, actually, it isn't. It really isn't better, because that was an artistic move and a stylistic move by the directors. It's not like the producers of a James Bond movie didn't have the money to put him in a car and drive him on the road, And that's what I think people are forgetting now. Like I saw one comment on the trailer, oh, this looks like an 80s film. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what you wanted.
Thank you. That's what we're looking for, moron. Oh. It's like, maybe if you understood style and tone, you might understand that instead of looking for the next Lights Out or, you know what I mean? Like, how about, or Conjuring, just how about you look at, these are independent filmmakers using artistic expression and style to convey a mood. It's a revolutionary thought.
I seen the funniest comment in one of the horror groups on Facebook before. I think it was in one of the Nightmare on Elm Street groups, and they were talking about the remake, and like we all know the remake sucked. And people were getting into discussion saying, like, stop making reboots, have some original ideas and whatnot. And this fella comes on and he said, well, they're making horrors since the 60s, so they were bound to run out of ideas at some stage.
Oh, brother.
Oh my God. Get out of the
group. That's like the person who said they should close down the patent office back in the 1800s because everything had been invented.
Oh, unbelievable. So, as you said, you premiered the trailer this weekend. I loved it. It has me even more excited now to see it.
Good.
What was the feedback from the fans when they seen it?
Well, you know what? You always have... We had the overwhelming response of positive. Then you have that group that just loves to hate everything.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and you got comments like, oh, this looks like a sci-fi movie. This looks like 90s porn, which I didn't know people were experts on 90s porn. But, it's pretty sad if you're an expert on that and you're still stuck in the 90s on your porn. But, okay. Things like that. Or, this is stupid. Why don't they have... Bruce Campbell had this idea and they stole it from him. No, that's not the case at all. Gunnar Hansen had been working on this since the 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And no one stole anything from Bruce. And most of all, Bruce was asked to be in the film. They're like, oh, couldn't they get Bruce Campbell? Well, no, because Bruce Campbell's shooting Ash versus the Evil Dead, and he was the nicest damn guy. And he said, quite frankly, he was just like, look, I'd love to, but I got this gig going. He was so nice about it, And why would he give up his good gig? He's got a good thing going. To come and be like a day or two on the set, too much,
People just love to make up drama, don't they?
Yeah, that's all we do. Like, so, my answer always is, first of all, open your minds, and God forbid we actually make something different. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when you got some comments going, oh, well, I don't know what to make of this. Good. That's what we want. We don't want to we didn't even put the best.
Yeah, you didn't give away a whole load in it, which is good. Because then you're not watching all the best bits in the trailer.
Right.
And then when you watch the film, you're like...
People act like it's a crime that they leave the trailer with questions. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm sorry we didn't spell it all out and tattoo it on your ass and forehead. I'm sorry.
Well, how many times do we leave a cinema and say, oh, all the best bits were in the trailer?
Well, right. And that's... And like I said, that's, for example, none of the Five Evos are in the trailer. Okay? And we didn't put all the best scenes in there. That's what I mean. So when people go, oh, wow, the trailer was awesome, that's great because you haven't even seen the best.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Okay? And we haven't spelled out all the surprises in it either. We still have plenty of surprise. Like one person said, like even the creature at the end that you see talking and screaming into the microphone, like I debated, like, do I put that in? Mm-hmm. Don't I? But it was a good stinger on the end of that trailer. Like it worked with the creature just screaming into the microphone. And I'm very proud to say that creature, there are 5 of those creatures in the film, and all 5 of them are practical effects. Those are humans inside of costumes that they were sewn into, Rita. They were literally tailored and sewn into the costumes, and we found the skinniest performers that we could. so that it looks like they're these living skeletons, you know?
But that is one of the best things when you're watching special effects like that, is trying to figure out how did they do that.
Yeah.
Do you know? It's all part of the fun of it. Will Death House be getting a theatrical release?
That is the plan. The answer right now is yes.
Excellent. When are you hoping to have it out?
That'll depend on the distributor, but they are looking at early 2017. So I'm thinking a window somewhere between January and April.
Oh, great. So not too long to wait.
No, not too long at all.
And do you see this been made into a franchise?
Yes, we have 5 sequels already planned, and the second one is written.
That is good to know for when we watch it, because I'm sure it'll leave us wanting more from the sounds of things.
Are you kidding? We have so many questions left for the audience at the end of this film. And that's what you want. Look, they didn't button up the Empire Strikes Back at the end. Imagine now if they did that. People were complaining just because they left a cliffhanger at the end of The Force Awakens. Is Luke Skywalker Rey's dad or grandfather? Is she related? But that's what movies should do. You should be leaving discussing and talking and having questions. God forbid you express some kind of intellect instead of being spoon-fed everything, which we're doing to our children. I don't know how it is in Ireland, but we're doing the same thing to our children over here. We're spoon-feeding them. They don't have to think. They just force everything to them, and then they get angry when they're not told everything.
Well, I really think you have the right attitude in filmmaking.
I hope so. Look, I grew up on this stuff. I grew up watching these people. I'm not sticking them in a bad movie. That's number one. And number two, I have a huge respect for the history of the genre. I mean, I have on my company website, if you just go to class85.com and you go under horror, I have a horror 101 list. And it's from the 1920s, like that guy that you said posted, they've been making horror since the 60s. No, jackass. It's been going on since films have been made, considering that it was Edison who made the first adaptation, I believe, of Frankenstein. So, they've been doing things for a while. But, literally since the 1920s when horror started to become commercial and technically like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and things like that. But these are the staples that you need to see. Like I have people emailing me, well, wait a minute, what about that? No, that may be your personal favorite, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily a building block of the genre. It may be a good film. I'm not saying that. What I'm just saying is that it's not a building block. Like I'm talking about the DNA of the genre, that there are certain ones that you really should see. It's going to make viewing Death House much more enjoyable because then you're going to get all these references. You're going to get the Easter eggs. You're going to enjoy it. And that's what a good movie should do.
And was there a particular movie that you watched that made you say to yourself, that's what I want to do. I want to be a filmmaker?
Jaws. I walked out of Jaws at 8 years of age. I saw it in the theaters in 1975. My mother took me. And I walked out knowing exactly what I want to make movies. I want to do to people what I saw in that theater, people laughing and screaming. And at the end, that was the first time, Rita, I ever experienced it as a boy, people applauding at the end of a motion picture.
Yeah, that's something you don't see. You wouldn't see that in Ireland a lot.
No. You don't see it a lot here in America.
Yeah.
Now I saw it with Jaws. I remember people in Titanic applauded. And I do remember, oddly enough, people applauding at the end of The Dark Knight. 2 audiences. I saw it twice in theaters. And I'm not even a big superhero guy, but I thought the film was well made, and I wanted to look at it a second time. And, in both times, 2 separate screenings, weeks apart, people applauded. That's great to see an audience do that,
What horror movie would you say affected you the most in terms of leaving you with a real kind of disturbed feeling after seeing it?
I know it instantly. It is Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978 with Donald Sutherland. And the reason why is, as a boy, I thought the scariest thing was everybody changing around you but you. Mm-hmm. And Philip Kaufman made such an exercise in absolute disturbing paranoia that I think, in my opinion, I think we're seeing that film come true today. I think it's happening. The way that people have become so conformist and they have to fit the mold. And then when you don't, you're a racist, misogynist. They have all these names to call you out when you don't fit into their agenda.
Yeah, and everything is so PC nowadays. You can't say anything.
The political correctness, we have become those pod people. That's what I believe. And I remembered as a boy being terrified of that because the aliens in that were really not hostile. That was the scary part. They just quietly assimilated people. And they weren't, goo dripping, monster gnashing, teeth gnashing monsters. They were just like the scene where Leonard Nimoy says, there's no need for hate. There's no need in our world. There's no need for money. There's no need for this. And Brooke Adams says something along the line, and no need for love. And he's like, there's no need for any of that now. And when you wake up, you can have the same car, you can have the same house, you can live the life that you have, but you just don't have any of those emotions. And that was terrifying to me. And that left me fundamentally disturbed. And I think most people would agree that last image of Donald Sutherland pointing at Veronica Cartwright and just letting out that alien alarmist wail is a very disturbing image.
But that is what is disturbing, not all this torture porn.
Right.
Isn't it? Completely.
Right. And somebody said at the panel, I think it was Sid Haig, that, you don't always need a lot of blood and gore to scare people. Absolutely. Even though we have it, because look, we know that the people that don't appreciate the higher concept story that we have will appreciate the blood and gore. So we tried to make something for the fans without it being, because Gunnar even said his original script was way too esoteric. And Gunnar admitted that. He said, I'm trying too hard to make art here, and I'm going to lose my audience. So he knew that. So what we did is we did aim high, but we also provided a base there for other people that may not be looking for that. And, when you said about blood and gore not being necessary, another film that I think made me turn the lights on, and I even contacted the director, and I said, congratulations, dude, after 25 years of watching, since I last turned on the lights, I said, you made me do it with your movie. And that was Lake Mungo that came out of Australia.
That's one I haven't seen now.
I loved it. And you know what? Most people, it's a slow burn ghost story. But when the reveal finally comes, what is on that cell phone absolutely bothered me. Because I think one of the most horrible things anyone can endure as being a parent is losing their child.
Yeah.
And how do you come back from that? Especially when the twists and turns that Lake Mungo takes, like you think, oh, okay, it's going to be this. Well, then all of a sudden it's like, no, now we're going in this direction. And then the final reveal is just so horribly tragic that I remembered it bothered me. It bothered me so much to just watch it. It was very just disturbing. But Invasion of the Body Snatchers still takes the cake for me.
Well, you saying that one of the films that disturbed me the most was Stephen King's The Mist, the end of that movie.
Yeah.
I've watched that once and I could never watch it again because I could not stop thinking about it afterwards. It just really got to me so bad.
And you know what? God bless Frank Darabont for having the balls to do it and ending his movie
It was the biggest shock ever because I'm not a big reader. I wouldn't have read the books. I'd watch all Stephen King's movies, not read the books. So I hadn't a clue what to expect in the film. And I enjoyed it so much. And then that scene happens at the end, and I was like, what would you do? You would literally lose your mind, do you know? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, the despair that forces him to do that.
Oh.
And then, of course, Darabont, if that wasn't bad enough, tacks on that what could have been a happy ending. They were inches from a happy ending.
Oh, it torments you. Absolutely torments you. And then we discussed earlier about reboots. That's all we're seeing. But we have had some really good horror movies from the independent scene in recent years. What would be some of the more original ideas that have come out of late that you would have liked?
I'm going to say right now, from what I have seen, I really enjoyed It Follows. And the reason why is because everybody says, well, there were problems with it. There are problems with every movie. There are problems with Jaws, for God's sake. What I liked about it was the concept of a supernatural STD.
Yeah.
I really, really liked that. And I think I would have enjoyed The Babadook more because I don't think The Babadook is really a horror film. I think it's more of a thriller and a drama with some very horrible elements to it. But what I didn't like about The Babadook was the incredible hype over The Babadook. And William Friedkin coming out saying this is the most terrifying movie I've ever seen. It's like, oh, come on, dude. No. You know what I mean? And you got me. I think I was upset because they got me. I was like, well, if William Friedkin is saying it, it's got to be scary. And then when I watched it, I was like, I liked it. I thought I loved the look of the film. I thought the performances were stellar. There's nothing wrong in that way. I'm not trashing the movie.
I get what you're saying, though.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And then the ending a little bit, I was like, all right. But it was hardly the most terrifying. And I think people should just stop that. I think we need to stop with this is the scariest movie ever, because everybody has a different subjective view of what's scary.
So true.
So, and with Death House, you're not hearing us saying this. Oh, it's the most terrifying movie of the year. No, we didn't make that. We made a movie that has some genuine scares, some jumps, some fun stuff. I equate Death House with a roller coaster ride through the fun house. That's what Death House is. But we're not the most terrifying movie of the year, because look, there are people that laugh at The Exorcist. So I think we just need to stop with all that hype and stop with this is the scariest film of the year. This is the scariest movie of the last 10 years. Just stop that.
And not forgetting based on true events.
Oh, yeah. The old based on true events. Yeah. Like, don't even get me started, especially with all that Amityville garbage. You know what I mean? Based on true events. I wrote a piece on that. I write a series called Cinema, Cynema, about cynicism in filmmaking. And, I made the argument that the Amityville horror series, all of them, including what's in The Conjuring 2, not only is it all bullshit, but they are some of the worst freaking movies ever made. There isn't a single good Amityville film out there. Not one. There isn't one. And the reason why is they could have made good ones. They chose not to. And that starts with the original 1979 film, which leaves boom shadows in and sloppy sound work, sloppy editing. They just didn't care because they knew this thing's going to make money. We don't have to try,
Well, you mentioned there, that's your blog that you write.
Yes.
So tell us a bit more about that.
Well, it was inspired by Jaws the Revenge. And the reason why it was, I don't write reviews. They aren't film reviews. The internet has plenty of quote unquote reviewers.
Yeah.
What I started writing about was when I walked out of Jaws the Revenge, not only did I feel cheated, but I realized, even at the age that I was, that they could have made a good movie here. They just chose not to. Mm-hmm. And even Michael Caine admits that in interviews. He said in one interview, he said right out, he said, and I'm paraphrasing him, but he said, by all accounts, the film is horrible, but the house that it built is terrific. And I kind of got it. I was like, oh, okay. So you had $28 million to play with. They decided to go back and make a movie that would give everybody a payday, get everybody out of Los Angeles and have a Bahamian vacation. And in the meantime, we're going to trade on the good name of Jaws. We're going to make a sucky motion picture, and we're going to throw it out there. And there'll be enough dumb people who will come back, me included, who will come back and drop money on it just because it's Jaws. And that's what we did. And that is cynical. They didn't even have a script when the mechanical sharks arrived in the Bahamas. And all I have to say to you, Rita, when anybody goes, no, it's a good movie. Really? You know the story of Jaws the Revenge. Try pitching that with a straight face after 2 sentences. Give me a break. They made a crappy movie and they knew it.
And what is the address for that website? Because I haven't had a chance to read them yet. I definitely want to check them out.
It's called, hang on here. It's published on horrorfuel.com, and I can give you the exact address right here. As a matter of fact, I can just email it to you so you can post it.
I'll stick it up
but
on
it
the
is
page.
published on horrorfuel.com, and it's under my name. It's under Harrison Smith with Cinema, Cynema, and I can send you the link right now, which I'm doing as we speak.
Perfect, and I can stick that up on the page for people to check out. So my last question before you go, what would be your favorite horror sequel of all time?
Horror sequel of all time. Mm-hmm. I've never been asked that. I'm gonna answer it twofold, if I may.
Okay.
One of them is from the old days, which I think it's probably better now than when it was made, is The Bride of Frankenstein. I think it's not only just a beautiful motion picture, but it was just so eloquently and well made. And acted the whole thing through. It's just such a class act all the way through from James Whale. And I think, in my opinion, is better than the original 1931 Frankenstein. And then I would say Tom Holland's script really propelled Psycho 2 to the top of my list.
That's mine as well. That is mine as well. I love that movie.
I think Psycho 2 is one of the most underrated horror films, but also overlooked as one of the greatest sequels to a horror film ever made, because there is anti-cinema. They could have aimed so low. That film came out at the height of the slasher time. They could have just made this, Norman Bates dressing up his mother and stabbing a bunch of kids at the hotel. They could have done that. And instead, they made this great, sophisticated thriller, and that's because of Tom Holland's script. I mean, I love Tom Holland.
He's fantastic.
And I think Fright Night is one of my top 5 movies of all time.
Same.
But I think Psycho 2 definitely is my personal absolute favorite sequel to a horror film.
I think it's better than the first.
Wow. Now, see, here's the funny part.
Yeah.
I said something similar in a film class when I was at college way back in the day, and my film professor went nuts on me. And look, we all know that Hitchcock's Psycho is a classic, not taking away, especially from the time that it came out. It broke all the rules. I get all of that. But damn it, if Psycho 2, in my opinion, story-wise, if it just doesn't surpass the original, I agree.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then, as you said, Fright Night, that's definitely one of my favourites too.
Oh,
Tom is just gifted, but he puts such heart into his movies. I think that's one of the things that attracts me.
Yeah,
yeah,
he really does. He's just, I think Tom Holland's one of the most underrated men in horror.
So, Harrison, thank you so much for coming on. It's been so much fun talking to you, and cannot wait for Death House to be released.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad you're excited about it. We hope fans are excited as well. And then most of all, excited to see it a second time when it comes out.
Thanks again, Harrison.
You're welcome, Rita. You have a good day.
The Crypt interviews in association with Mayo Legend Point Castle Bar.